you tell me.
You're lying.
We're here in Senate Transportation. We are here with the treasurer, Mike Pichek, and we are here to talk about Vermont Green license plate. Welcome.
Well, Chair Westman, thank you very much for having me. Thanks to the committee for the time as well. I think I wanted to provide a little bit of an overview of this idea and some of the details around it as well. But just as a general framing, this was something that we thought about over the summer and fall, and something that we thought could be a really feel-good piece of legislation this session in a year where there's going to be a lot of challenging conversations and challenging topics to be had. So this proposal would create on the back plate of the license plate. There are a number of black plate license plates now, none of them connected to a sports team or to the Vermont Green. But for those that may not be familiar, the Vermont Green is a football club based in Burlington. They are part of the USL League Two, and they won the 2025 National Championship this past year. They have driven a tremendous amount of excitement in and around the Chittenden County and Vermont area. They have a tremendously loyal and strong fan base after just a number of years of operating. They have been really successful on the field, getting better and better, and having won the championship last year. They have a great connection with UVM soccer as well, with a lot of players playing on both teams. And as you know, UVM won the national championship last year as well. But they also just are a great, in my opinion, community asset. They are something that a lot of people in Burlington look forward to participating in, to watching, to going live to the games. There are a lot of young people that go. It's kind of activity and a kind of an organization that provides vitality that's really critical to all of the things we're trying to accomplish in Vermont in terms of growing our economy and building more housing and building our workforce. These are the kind of things that you need to add to that kind of vitality that makes up a strong community. So, the license plate proposal certainly would let residents show their support for the club and also generate tens of thousands of dollars annually for a new special fund. The idea would be that this new special fund would be managed by a board out of the treasurer's office, with the treasurer, the DMV commissioner, representative from the Climate Action Office, and then a representative from the Vermont Green and the Outdoor Business Alliance. So the Vermont Green's mission, and you'll hear from the Vermont Green after me, but they have a strong mission in environmental sustainability, access to outdoor recreation. So the idea would be that these funds that were raised from the license plate partnership would go to the special fund for grants for those purposes, support environmental sustainability and resilience, and support Vermont's outdoor recreation economy. So again, things that are mission aligned with the Vermont Green, but also things that are really critical to Vermont. The idea around resiliency is something that is going to be with us for quite some time, building a more resilient community, building more resilient communities in the rural parts of Vermont that have seen disproportionate impacts from climate change. How do we protect them from those climate disasters? And that's purely an economic issue, certainly, and also beyond just the economic issue in terms of people's homes and businesses being impacted and washed away, and that traumatic impact that has on people. But the other piece in outdoor recreation is one of the really bright spots in our economy. Be able to lean into that brings tourism dollars to Vermont, brings tourism dollars to rural parts of Vermont, because a lot of the outdoor recreation opportunities are disproportionately in more rural areas. So I think it's clearly a win for Vermont. Vermont Green has built up certainly profile, not just in Vermont, but regionally and nationally, reflects a lot of Vermont's core values of fairness and community and commitment to doing what's right. The team's success has also been, as I mentioned, an enormous sense of pride for the community and for all Vermonters. The plates will allow Vermonters to show its pride and stand for those shared values, reinforcing the club as a place that is good for Vermont and a place where Vermont treats everybody fairly and with dignity. I think it's also a big win for the Vermont Green. You can certainly hear about that from them, but soccer in Vermont and soccer in this community is really one of the fastest growing sports. The energy and the excitement around it. The plates would help deepen the team's roots in Vermont, help expand its reach across the state. and help cement their role as a team for Vermont's future. So I think the benefits are felt for the state, for the team, and generally for Vermont and for the community. A couple of things here to mention on this concept of the fund. You know, this is new revenues without new taxes. The program creates new non-tax revenue streams, bringing in additional resources for, again, climate justice, outdoor recreation. On the climate justice front, we hit on that, but this committee knows from your work as well as any how many natural disasters have been declared in Vermont the last 15 years, how much FEMA funding has come to Vermont over the last 15 years, all of the work that we need to do to make our communities more resilient. And this won't be a huge pot of money, but it will be something, and it will be something that is able to move forward this really important work. And then, of course, the outdoor recreation piece as well. We have the second highest share of our GDP in the nation that's attributed to outdoor recreation economy. So it is a really critical place for us to lean into and invest into when we can. So on the next slide, there's a little bit of a visual. It's just a concept of what something would look like in terms of Vermont Green license plate, similar to the conservation license plate that you may see or Building Bright Futures license plates that exist. And it would be the same concept that those funds go into the special fund managed by the Treasurer's Office and then used consistent with the purpose of the fund and consistent with the Vermont Green values. We have other special funds that are set up similarly, not from this kind of revenue, but from other revenue where we manage it with a group of stakeholders, including the DMV around our municipal equipment loan fund. For example, we have our 10% Vermont fund as well, where we do have outside of our office, outside of state advisors that advise us on what we should do. So mechanically, it's something that we're very familiar with running in our office. And then on the last slide, just a little bit of humor, but I was driving and had a stop sign or a stoplight, and I said, boy, I got to take a photo of that really quickly. This was about 2 weeks ago, because it looks like Vermonters are already creating their own Vermont Green license plate on their own. So I think there is a calling and a demand for it. But in all seriousness, you'll hear from the Green, but their fan base is quite extensive and quite large. And like I said, quite committed to the team. And I do think you would see quite a bit of uptake of a plate if it were provided to them for purpose. And obviously the Green, through their outreach and marketing, would have an opportunity to reach a lot of people in their fan base that would be interested in this. The last thing I'll mention, separate from this, is we've been having ongoing conversations with the administration and with the DMV and the Agency of Transportation. And I know they have some additional ideas or proposals that they're working on. So we're going to keep our line of communication open with them. But we wanted to come in and sort of present this idea and the reason behind it sort of in its totality.
Question. Go ahead.
Thank you. You mentioned it as a back plate.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it be both plates?
I think I'm not sure. It could be both plates, certainly. But I guess when I've seen the special plates, like with conservation, I generally
have
know,
those plates,
and they're on both.
But maybe that's
Okay.
the whole thing. I don't know. I think they're both plates.
Okay. Yeah, if you're right.
And then we have special front plates.
Right. Like Vermont, like Montstrong.
Wrong. Yeah. But I don't know if we have if the non-being linked to the conservation plates, or I think they're both plates. At least that's what I.
Yeah, and the idea would be that if it is both plates, then the idea would be it's both plates. Because that it's I said back plate, just sort of differentiating it from like a Vermont Strong specialty plate. It's sort of something that is meant to be as it was in the image.
It would be its own plate, kind of like the electric car plate that we have up there. And so I didn't get that last part. Did you say the governor does support this, or we don't know yet?
They have an alternative, conversation that they've been having about sort of a proposal they have around license plates for this year. So we've just been in an ongoing conversation with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
One other question about the environment. Here you said environmental justice. You said climate justice. But what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think there are two opportunities there. I think most likely it would be resilience and sustainability type grants, but it could also be something that is focused on, energy efficiency or, sustainability from that standpoint.
Okay.
So I think, I think it'd be a broad definition, but I think those are the most likely uses, something like that. There's not going to be significant grants. I mean,
Right.
you know, some of the other license plates, from what we understand, are, you know, we're talking hundreds of thousands if you're doing really well in revenue. So
Do you know how many of the other plates are issued?
I think it'd be a better question.
Yeah.
You know, the thing. Oh, sorry.
One last question is, who decides on the plate design? I think I saw an earlier tease of this idea that said just the DMV commissioner would decide, or
I think that's probably right. I think they would have to get the right to license the, you know, the intellectual property from the Vermont Green. They'd have to enter into that. So I think the Green would certainly have to be okay with the design as well to be able to, you know, offer up its intellectual property. So I think it would be a combination of the DMV commissioner and the license holder. But the
And the
holder of
committee
IP.
that you put together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
they could do, yeah. Well, when we did the electric plate, we said that the legislature had it stay in. Not saying that has to be for this, but we'd just like to know who is gonna make the
Well,
decision.
I'm, you know, the legislature wants to be involved in there. We do have somebody that wants to redesign the state flag too.
No, yeah. Sorry, those are my.
Well, I was just, yeah, it's
Yeah.
okay.
Whichever.
When you spoke about the administration having their own ideas on a plate, you're talking plates in general.
Yeah, not this way. Yeah, exactly right. Okay.
Here's a couple of questions. I think it's a great idea and, all over the state, there's support for the team. So there's support, but people don't necessarily know the logo. And I just think it's somewhere it should say FC on it or football club, just because the logo could be really just generally Vermont Green. So I just think that should be part of the design, just so that folks are, understand. But could folks, I think it'd be nice when we have these plates that are mission based to be able to pay more if you want to, because there are folks who would do that. Is that something that is possible?
I would think so. I mean, it's a DMV question, but certainly,
Okay.
When you have your vanity plate and you're putting your registration, it could be another field, I imagine, that's sort of,
Everybody that has a specialty plate like that is.
yeah.
Right, but then if you want to pay even more, just
You want
because it
to
might be
throw
a,
$50.
yeah, because the people might do that.
49 is cheaper than a banner.
I think vanity plates for VA.
So I'm supportive and, yes, I hope we could go forward on this. Because I think, and just looking at the one up there, the bottom line doesn't say, Green Mountain State, it says electric vehicle, so that might be somewhere where you could actually put the name,
Right, right, I see what you're saying. That would be, yeah. Yeah.
Just to be clear
And
on what
yeah,
it
This
is.
was very much a prototype just to get the image, but
Yeah.
that would be a much better, clearer way of doing it.
It's a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah,
I would also say to you, if there's a fund, I suspect there'll be a way to contribute to the fund.
that's true. too.
Right now, there's no opportunity to contribute because there is no fund, but there will be. So
And those special funds are often, they're always written with that idea in place, that there's usually a source of funding going into the special fund, but then there's usually this language that says, and it can accept donations,
Okay.
you know.
but if there's no fund, there's no opportunity.
And I think, the Green can speak for themselves, but you can imagine a world where not only is this license plate concept something that their fans are happy with, but it's knowing that there's this fund that is supporting their mission aligned work, and that they have a role in administering, then that very well could lead to other additional support.
One last question, would these be, can you get around, these would be state special fund grants, like do you have to follow Vulcan 5.0 when you issue these grants, or is there a way to not deal with it? I think such small grant.
Yeah, I think, we have a granting, agreement in place in our office. We have other kind of grants that we do. They're relatively small also, but I think that's a pretty straightforward process for us. And we may already be able just to comply with what we already have in place. And how we would envision doing it like we do with our municipal loan fund or with our 10% Vermont fund. Is basically have either an open RFP and you sort of have the process twice a year, or you issue an RFP, once or twice a year to sort of solicit and then issue the grants through that process. So whatever the structure is, like, it'll be consistent with what.
You're not feeling it would be an administrative burden at all on your office?
I don't think so. I mean, it'd be relatively limited additional work.
Good. I know people that will want to buy them.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go to the Vermont Green.
Great.
You know,
They're more interested in
and then if we run out of time, I'll get David back to go through the question.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, thank you all for, before I kind of read what I wrote here, it just, I'll be able to speak to the scene.
Introduce yourself and
Yes, my name is Patrick Inferna. I'm a resident of South Burlington, co-founder of Vermont Green FC. But yeah, just thank you all for even the ability to entertain this idea. I think this is quite the honor for us. So yeah, so my name is Patrick Inferna. I'm a resident of South Burlington, co-founder of Vermont Green Football Club, a minor league pre-professional soccer team based in Burlington since 2022. Here today to give some background on Vermont Green FC, our mission, and why we would support any initiatives for potential future Vermont Green FC specialty license plates. Vermont Green is on a mission to not only bring the highest level of men's and now women's soccer as well to the state of Vermont, but to build a culture that prioritizes environmental sustainability, consciousness, and stewardship. The club believes that soccer can be a powerful catalyst for a more environmentally sustainable, socially just world. From the start, our goal in building this club, from our branding and business practices, was to be an authentic reflection of the community that we played in, and a medium for community gathering and expression. For us, championing sustainability and promoting a respect and a love for the outdoors is crucial to that authenticity. We wanted the green to look and feel and think and speak like Vermont, and to unequivocally uphold the values of our state. We have always believed that bringing high-level soccer to the state was not enough, and that building a lifestyle and identity around the game was our path to permanence in the state of Vermont and in our culture. With this identity at the forefront of our mission, we've had the pleasure and the privilege of incredible community support since before our first match in 2022. We've had success on the pitch, which really helps. We've posted winning seasons every year, and the club has attracted local, national, and even international attention and accolades. In just our 4 seasons, the club's been featured in the New York Times, BBC, The Guardian, ESPN, and numerous other outlets that have praised the rising prominence of Vermont soccer culture. We're proud to be a part of that soccer culture. And we believe, it's built in conjunction, not just with our football club, but with the University of Vermont, men's and women's, all of the youth soccer that's happening. The youth participation is really robust in the state, and just a general kind of outstanding enthusiasm for the sport of soccer in the state. In 2025, the team completed a miraculous undefeated season. We won our first USL2 national championship, beating out 144 other teams across the country. There was a million little pieces that propelled us to that title and that feat, but one thing that we were 100% certain played a role was our kind of now famous within this community home field advantage. Every single playoff game was sold out, and most of them were sold out in a matter of seconds. Actually, caused us
I heard.
quite a few problems.
Yeah, people I know are quite mad about it.
Yeah, it was our first. The playoffs was our first having to deal with people kind of mad at us. Which is a growing thing, I think. But yeah, so the final, the estimated attendance, because we couldn't know for sure, because we put it at about 5,000, which means only about half of the people were actually ticketed in the stadium. The rest were kind of lined up wherever they could catch a view, which is, an interesting thing with the university trying to figure out how that all works. Yeah, and on August 2nd, on 8:02, we defeated Seattle Washington's Ballard FC in the USL2 National Championship. It's a seminal moment in the growth of our club and kind of what we consider to be a movement. The match was shown on WCAX Channel 3. We reached out to bars and restaurants. There was over 100 that were showing it, and and the match was the highest viewed USL League Two final in the league's 30-year history, by quite a margin. And yeah, so lifting the trophy was a physical reward for all of this. But I think the bigger realization was just how, that greater moment of just kind of where we were sitting in kind of the conscious of the state and the culture. It was like really that was kind of the bigger reward for us. So yeah, when Treasurer Pichek and his team approached us about the idea of Vermont creating, collaborating with the state of Vermont on an official license plate, we were obviously energized to give this our attention. We see this as an exciting opportunity for our mission, raising significant fund for organizations that promote outdoor recreation and environmental stewardship, but also gives Vermonters the opportunity to show their pride in seeing that we hope will continue to represent the state, its people and its values at the national and international stage. And yeah, and with the World Cup coming to the United States this summer, and the soccer obsession kind of taking hold nationwide, but I think in a really extra intense way in Vermont, I think there's no better time than now to double down on that kind of the way the state is kind of falling in love with the game. In a kind of extra outstanding way. So yeah, that's color on the club and where we sit on this and why this is so interesting to us. And yeah, cool.
It's pre-professional. Do the players get paid, or is it kind of like the pre-professional baseball?
Yeah.
So it's like you support them, but they don't get actual paycheck.
Yeah, we house the players, and we support them getting here and all of that. But they actually, this will be changing as the years go by with NCAA. But at the moment, they couldn't collect a wage from us.
It's almost all of them are called.
Yeah, it would end their eligibility.
They all are.
Pretty much all. We had a couple like that were former pros, and we've had like players that were still in high school before, but the majority is players currently in NCAA.
Okay.
Cool. Just a suggestion, maybe if you ever can do it, is to maybe have some matches around the state.
Yeah, we that's like I grew up in Castleton in Rutland County, and like we've looked into obviously Castleton University Stadium, which is quite nice, and even Applejack Stadium in Manchester is like a very cool. It's actually like built in. It looks like an English stadium, so we've tried to, but it's such a compact season.
Yeah,
so it's always like it's a bit tough with the scheduling, but it is something we hope to start doing, especially now that we've got a women's team and just trying to bring this out more to the state. And we're currently looking into eventually forming our own nonprofit that we want to prioritize, kind of expanding access to the game outside of Chittenden County, because it really does change. Like where I grew up in Rutland, the game, people are very excited and about soccer, but it's not quite the same yet. And we think there's a desire for that if people just have more access to it.
Great. And Brattleboro, they're excited.
Yeah, of course.
Stadium.
No, I was thinking that. We have very nice field, but I can't do it. Stadium. We're frugal.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Well, I don't have a question, but I did want to say thank you so much for the work that
Yeah.
you're doing, because I think it's brought a lot of community and joy at a time when Vermonters are feeling pretty low with some of the national politics. So I really, really appreciate that. And I appreciate your support of migrant justice and other organizations at your games, because I think it leads to a really diverse group of people coming and enjoying soccer. So I just want to say thank you for that, and for lifting up women's sports through that as well, because that game was one of my favorite, to see young girls so excited to see women playing, and just the joy of that. I think you're going to see a ripple effect for years of young people playing soccer when we have had a dip in that kind of engagement. So I really appreciate this, and I usually am not in favor of us doing any kind of specialty license plate. So if I ultimately don't support it, it's not because of the love of the game, but more of a sense of, do we need another license plate?
Fair.
But I'm open-minded to this.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Definitely, thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you all.
Can you do this in 5 minutes? Sure.
little quicker.
Most stuff you do takes longer than 5
I'll be
minutes.
very quick.
Are you sure?
No.
We're gonna ask them.
All right. Good morning. For the record, my name is Damian Leonard. I'm from the Office of Legislative Counsel. I think you all have S-234 in front of you. If you don't, it's pretty straightforward. There's 2 sections. The first section adds a new license plate section modeled on the conservation plans and building bright futures, or conservation plates and building bright futures plates that we already have in the state. It allows light vehicles and trucks that are less than 26,000 pounds, so light and medium duty trucks, to get the plates. The plates would cost an additional $45 per year. So it's an annual fee. Of that fee, the first year, it's split $23.77 between the transportation fund and the Vermont Green FC Special Fund. And in following years, it would be 16% to the transportation fund and 84% to the Vermont Green Special Fund. I created those percentages. I looked at the existing plates and then rounded up the dollar amounts based on the percentages and then figured out the percent there. So it's designed to provide as much money to the transportation fund as the other plates do, or slightly more.
How much you get on to the P fund?
So 23% in the initial year, so it's about $10 in the first year, and then 16% thereafter. So I think that's about $6 or $7
And that's the same for the conservation plates.
based off of the conservation and bright futures plates, which are actually slightly different amounts, and I don't know how we got there. If you move forward with this, you'll of course want to talk to DMV about their costs and so forth. I'm assuming. Yeah.
We're not going to move forward with this without, and then taking a look at what other license plates, what alternatives there are.
Yeah, so the second section is the special fund. It's created in the Office of the Treasurer. It takes receipts from the license plates plus any gifts, grants, or contributions or amounts appropriated by the General Assembly. The treasurer would be able to seek and accept grants along with the board that's created in there, and the monies would be used to provide support for environmental justice and the outdoor recreation economy, plus the administrative costs of administering the fund. And then the board would be the treasurer, the commissioner of DMV, director of the Climate Action Office, representative of the Vermont Green, and the executive director of the Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance, or designee. And they would be able to oversee the fund and make expenditures for grants and so forth. And I think I covered all of the key points. Any questions?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I have a couple questions. I know you didn't say the effective date, but I feel like it would be good to have an earlier effective
It's
date.
this July 1.
So it is, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But their season starts.
You
So
would have to, it would be up to you to move the bill out and to work with DMV to make sure that they could actually start getting the plates from Department of Corrections. Plates need to be designed, etc.
Okay, so it would, okay, I hear what you're saying. I feel
Yeah.
like it would be appropriate for folks to buy it day one. I mean, I guess that would be a nice, but, so that brings me to my main question, which is, are you, is the way this is drafted, the football club can basically sell them, like they could have, no, so how
It
would,
goes through the DMV when you register your car.
so you
so-
wouldn't be able to like get a form at a gate to get a license plate? You'd have
No,
to,
you'd have to go online to the DMV. Of course, the football club could advertise that the plates are available
And
and
that would
direct
be-
you to the DMV.
Okay.
But you'd have to go through the DMV the same way you would for conservation or building bright futures, or if you're getting another specialty plate like a badminton plate or something.
yeah,
You get those to the DMV when you register. And then in order to keep this plate, you have to pay the additional fee each year or each registration cycle.
and if someone, like, I guess my only concern would be, let's say we get like Vermont red starts, let's say there's a Southern Vermont soccer team that pops up, that's a rival or something, I don't know, or a company is that opens up and has some kind of competition. Is it appropriate for the state to support a specific sports team? Like, does New York have, you can get a New York Yankees versus a Mets versus a, like, is that?
So it depends state by state. In New York, you can get all the sports teams.
Okay.
The
Well, I could see in Vermont, UVM last year won the national championship in soccer.
yeah,
So,
Yeah, hockey, I mean,
Right.
yeah.
and in Massachusetts, there's a Red Sox plate that supports the Jimmy Fund. There are Patriots plates. I don't know what those funds go to. So a lot of other states do have sports team plates. It ultimately is a call for you, though, whether that's a policy you want Vermont to follow or not, and how you want the funds generated by the plate to be used. So some states do use them to support a specific charity or cause that the team is supportive of. Other teams, it's just extra money flowing into the transportation fund.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my only concern was really, do we as a state, it feels like a little bit of like a stamp of approval, this is the team that we want. But it sounds like that's not uncommon in other states. There isn't like a,
well,
There's a
I think
negative
there's a
spin.
number of different ways that this could be handled.
yeah,
You know, they even brought up, and I'm not suggesting anything, but I think we're gonna have to do a little bit of digging. The Vermont Strong License Board
Yeah.
raised a lot of money as a front plate. You know, is which one's better? Why would you choose one over the other? I think those are the start of what the questions are, but other states do multiple things. I think we're gonna have to look at this a little. And I think we've already heard the administration is probably gonna have a proposal also.
oh, I missed that, sorry.
Yeah, about
Plates in general, could be.
which brings up to the issue that you raised. I think, you know, what I'm hearing around the table is we're all in favor of this kind of an, but how it might come together in the end might change some.
Okay, thank you.
Patrick, did you have?
Well, it might be a question for DMV, but quickly, if I remember back years ago, we had that somebody came forward with a plate idea. They had to guarantee a certain amount of sales. Could you talk about that?
So there are also plates that exist for service organizations and public safety organizations. And they have to have at least 100 in-state members, but we're talking about like police and fire protection, rescue squads, the National Guard, the VFW, the American Legion. And the way those plates work is that there's a $21 special fee, and in it, what happens is the organization subsidizes the initial run of the plates, and then their members can get a plate to say, I'm a member of the VFW, or
That's not
I'm a
the
member of
case.
the National
That
Guard.
wouldn't be the case here.
Yeah, this is different. This is more like the conservation plates
Yeah.
with the trout or the deer.
I
Yeah.
think a presentation from DMV about what they do all the way around and will help us think about this more.
Yeah.
Okay.
And really, this is for the sponsors of the bill, but environmental justice, I don't know if that's defined in statute. We have the environmental justice law, but I don't know if it's defined in there.
It's not defined for purposes of this bill. The language for this bill was modeled on a proposal from the treasurer. But you can certainly specify what environmental justice means or change the wording to something that you think is more appropriate or is better defined.
The sponsors might say to you that this got introduced, that the drafting request came in from the treasurer's office just before our deadline. So. So I think the sponsors of this didn't get a whole lot of time to give it some.
Only two names.
But I think from what I'm hearing, we all think it's a good idea to at least investigate this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the Agency of Transportation. Thank you all for coming. Thank you. Thank you.
Same.
It's totally fine. It's totally
Sorry.
fine. Totally fine, but. Well, we're gonna. What kind of thing should?
No.
I mean, exactly.
Hi, good morning. Well, thank you.
I think you're on.
Do you have a presentation?
I do. We're all, just a few slides. Bear with me.
I will say we've held back on making soccer related contests. I don't know, like, oh, this is a real. I don't know, like, this is, you're going in the goal. This is.
Oh, fun. Oh, yeah.
So we held back, that was good.
So you didn't get content?
We didn't fund it, yeah, there we go. There we
Megan, do you have my slides?
go.
My computer is not booting up.
There.
Okay. And I would hate for you to navigate the 10 slides with me, but may have to ask for your forgiveness.
I didn't know, but that's.
Yeah. Pass it around. You know.
First stop. Yes. Okay. He is a little nice.
I bought them out.
Nice.
Oh, no.
I'm good.
Are you?
Thank you.
You're behind everything. I won't be.
Ross?
I think I'm in now. Thank you.
And I need to leave at 11, so it's not, I'm just gonna quietly run out, but
I farm here.
wish I could.
Yeah.
There we go.
They're very small.
Yeah.
They're very small. Where does some of this stuff go?
I didn't want you to, so big that you fall asleep.
True. That's very true. That's kind.
I thought I just saw your.
It said no internet, but I
Well, I can just
Try to
recreate
sign
my
it.
Main Street. Photo from that. You're mine. I know, this is what I'm saying. I'm trying to be a delicate eater.
I do like.
Yeah, different
Big
than
shop.
I am different.
Are you? I said, like it.
What I really like about that bake shop is the little fire out in front.
They have a little.
Yeah, they have a little fire pit.
I haven't seen that. I know a lot of people just go to the hang out.
hey,
Again?
I'm coming in there, so I'll just share real quick.
Yeah, my grandmother used to do a slice of bread with a thick slab of butter and dip it in coffee.
Like, all the.
No.
Yeah.
There you are. Can we keep our butter out of the fridge?
And on the little butter thing with the water or just.
No, we don't do that anymore. That was an effective for us.
Doesn't work. What do you do with like a glass?
Well, sorry. If you put your butter in the fridge, I don't.
No, we have a glass. You can see how much.
You should be able to check.
Thank
you.
That's sure.
Yeah.
And Clayton's here too. I'll step away.
Works.
Are you ready?
It's
Hi,
Possibly.
Senator. Thank you very much. Thanks
nice.
for your patience.
Ross McDonald, Public Transit Program Manager, program for 19 years, program manager for 6. And today to talk about the O&D program. Surprising nobody, it is the most challenging of the programs to manage due to the unpredictable demands that we receive from time to time every year. And the way that we allow for regional flexibility. But this program really flows through the funder applied through our annual transit grant, with along with fixed route, capital, admin needs. We look at the history of outlays, different dynamics, different trip types, and then we provide an initial award. We also withhold some dollars for the mid-year adjustments, understanding that we'll be right or wrong by big percentages. And we then work through the mid-year adjustment to right size the program as best we can. Then the transit providers, concurrent to that review, is establishing their regional planning with the Regional Planning Commission, their O&D or Mobility Committee meetings, look at the agenda, last year's budget, how close were they to budget, what were the trip types, what were the matches, all of those things, the non-federal match. And they advise and contribute and support the budget and those tough decisions on these constraints. Each one of these regions have constraints in terms of trip types and trip numbers. And then we just keep looking at that actual as best we can. So.
Yeah, I had a question, quick question.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
so I just think it's important, and I'm gonna have to leave before this is finished, but those mobility committees, those are not easy to find just generally. I find that they're
Get people to be on it or to find where they can.
to even first know that they exist.
Yeah.
And to know what their authorities are. I mean, they're really important committees. And for example, I found mine a few years ago, but I never hear anything from it. I don't know if they're advertised. Those meetings are advertised.
The RPC in that area, Colin Bratton, is the facilitator and the convener of the O&D committee in that area.
I completely believe that, and that makes sense. But I'm pretty attuned to transit, and I never see those. When I tried to find one, I was able to, but I think it's important that the riders and the users and municipalities know about those or know more about.
You think it's the member of the Senate from Wyndham County and on the Transportation Committee that you might have a little more access than the general public?
Possibly, and which is, in fact, anyway.
And former board member.
Right, but not of that committee. That's a really, those are challenging.
Where did the funds come from? What's prior to your first spots there? Like, are there a mix of federal and state funds?
They are. We use a mix of the FHWA Flex dollars, STBG, and CMAQ dollars. And we now are pulling in carbon reduction program funds, which can be used like CMAQ dollars. So that's the 80% funding that we use from the federal side of things.
Okay, so you just wanted,
Yes.
is it required?
It is the 20% non-federal match is required.
Did the program require?
No, the program is not required. The requirement is that we receive E&D or elderly and disabled funds to the tune of $310,000 a year. We usually buy vehicles with those dollars to support the operations of the program.
But those are competitive grants? Or is that?
That's the formula. And then there will be some mobility management competitive grants from time to time that we've applied through for Gopher and other types of entities. And so every year we look at what was the budget, what was the requested total from all of our providers, and what were we able to cover with our initial award. And with O&D, when we saw the $6.1 million request, that was far exceeding our expectations. And we cobbled together some capital unspent dollars, some older O&D funds that were unspent, and we're able to get up to about $5.9 million. And it's still not enough. We're seeing these types of discussions like we're having in Colchester throughout the state. And so the time is now to address some of these opportunities that we'll talk about. So these are the trip details. I think you probably saw these a few weeks ago when Dan was here. We really do look at these as the critical care, medical needs, senior meals, adult day, wellness, shopping, essential shopping, as our priorities, the vocational, social, personal. Those are added on in layers that we understand are critical to so many people. Those are the trip types that we look to provide. And when we look at the modes, volunteer drivers, well over 50% pre-COVID, down to 44%. That pushes costs up. When we look at trip purpose, as a statewide program manager, you look at social, personal, vocational, 10, 11% of the overall budget. That's probably a comfortable place for us to be, and not seeing where social, personal are taking all the non-Medicaid medical or similar. And it's all over the place. Each region has their own demands and adult day services and access to hospitals and healthcare. And I just highlighted the social, personal, and vocational to point out that certainly at GMT Urban, the social, personal, and vocational are far more important than they are in the other regions.
Just to go back one slide, and well, I guess you could also look here, but so for non-Medicaid medical needs, would that be like picking up your prescriptions? That be an example of
That would
that?
be essential shopping. It's been to
Okay.
those doctor's appointments and the physical therapy and the wellness and the SASH type of services where you have chair yoga and those things. They bring people into the senior centers to participate in those types of wellness activities as well.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So it would be considered critical shopping if you were picking up prescriptions.
Yeah, essential shopping is what we call it. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see it here, but we will want to spend time on the initiative that we take some ownership in this committee about getting volunteers and how well that is.
I do have an update on that, on those efforts.
Well, we'll want to spend some time in that and figure, particularly with the idea that halfway through this fiscal year that in what will be if three of us are afternoon committee, and the Medicaid reductions that look like happened. The Joint Fiscal Committee got a report in the fall, and I think they said as many as 45,000 people could be losing their healthcare coverage. And with all of that and the pressure on communities to maintain services in my community, our hospital board voted to cut births at our hospital and services for particularly young mothers. If we need to make sure that they at least have access to rides to wherever those services are. So we'll want to spend some time to dig into where we are with that and where we've got to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we'll be talking about the Section 28 report where we have been charged to work with the healthcare and hospital system.
Yep.
Some good information there. I can bring some information on the Section 24 reports that we've awarded. And so just moving on, why are we talking about the O&D program a little differently now? Because that's where the money is and that's where the cost increase have been. On average, the demand response trip is $53. It was about $24 pre-COVID. And so all of these costs are up significantly, 30-60%, up around 100% on demand response. And when you look at $53, that 53 is the average, and folks like at GMT Rural at just around $90. You can imagine where we didn't hear from Colchester and the folks because they had the budget and they didn't have those costs to allow for the trip types to be maintained and sustained. So as we know, GMT Rural is moving to RCT, which is in the rearview mirror, and partially, and TVT, which is coming up. So we hope that will reduce the costs and improve the services, allowing for more trips for more people. And here we are with the volunteer data. In July, when we first saw the T-bill, we took an assessment, about 170 full and part-time volunteer drivers. We added 2.5 staff members and are moving through some other grants that are part of mobility management. And we've added a few, and this is with some snowbirds too, that come off the system for the winter time. And that's up to 192. The goal is 300 by July. And everyone has received a portion of their $600,000 to hire coordinators, to help outreach, to develop branding plans, those things. And I'll be sharing a full review of each provider and each activity and efforts that they're looking to provide over the next few years. When we talk about volunteer data, I'm very appreciative of the Senate and the investment. If last year was let's build the volunteer and the community driver capacity, this year it could be mobility management, where we really look to work with those folks who are on frequent long distance trips and see if we can find other ways to combine, to bundle those types of services, and to reduce some of those costs.
Well, you can't do it without drivers. And then when you get drivers, more drivers, we need to make sure they're as efficient as possible. We get all of that. And we'll want to look at this. You know, I particularly, and I'm going to say this just for me, when I'm looking at cuts in healthcare, this is an area where with reductions, the only way you can get people to services, particularly those that are most at risk, older and lower income, is provide them rides. And this is the most efficient way that we've got, particularly looking at reduction in services across the state.
Our program shares the concern. We sit on working groups with Department of Health, Dale. Those folks in there are also concerned about those impacts that you spoke of earlier.
I understand that, but we knew from last year that the amount of volunteer drivers from before COVID to now was reduced. So go ahead.
Thank you. So just so that we can have good conversations and look at alternatives, do you have GIS data for where the people are going and where they've gone, like in the last 2 years? Can the system?
Through the demand response program?
Yes. Yeah.
I think we can get the ODs, origins, destinations, and have some folks roll that information up.
Okay, that would be really helpful to know where they're coming from and where they're going to and how many.
Check that out.
That would be, because there might be other ways that we can do this.
Can you chart your number of full and part-time drivers? That's part-time, full and part-time volunteer drivers.
That's exactly, just only volunteer drivers. And some do full-time in the summer, but only part-time when the weather suits them during the winter time, of course. But, you know, the challenges that we've reviewed, we know the cost increases are there. Fewer volunteer drivers, which this committee has addressed. The demand increases are real and significant as we age. The fastest growing age demographic are those people over 80. Those are the folks who are, aging out of driving. We did add social, personal, and more vocational trips as we look to try to achieve a more of a mobility for more options and reasons. And again, this was continuing to be a surprise to us and our providers. We'll be working through the VPTA, Vermont Public Transportation Association, next week and coming up with a few working groups to work on budget as well as the O&D program. Opportunities, the community driver program, volunteer program we just talked about. We'll let those efforts continue and learn from those. Mobility management, we'll talk a little bit about what we've been doing at Colchester and next steps there and what we can do around the state. As we look at underperforming routes or inefficient parts of performing routes, is there an opportunity to redirect those funds from the fixed bucket of services to the demand response services, especially as we talk about some Medicaid risks increase local contributions. So many folks used a in-kind drawdown of federal dollars because of those volunteer hours can be used to match federal dollars. And so $100 trip becomes 120. They add in kind and they're able to draw the 100% from federal. All that to say, there could be a way for us to work with different program partners to see if we could increase local contribution, something that maybe Aaron would talk about next. And then we'll look at the program guidance with this VPTA folks and see what we can do better together. And really, that's the part from our perspective. And I know there's a lot of folks left here, so just close with that. See if there's questions.
Well,
Go ahead.
we weren't able to fund the request by $200,000, correct?
Mhm.
Would that 200,000, would that have satisfied the needs in the O&D program?
Well, because it's constrained, whether it's the number of trips that you can take or the types of trips you can take, it never satisfies the need entirely. But what's that expecting need? And generally speaking, yes, we withheld about $350,000 from the O&D program when we made those initial awards, understanding some people would be heavy, some people would be on budget. And then we've been doing that since Barb's been around, my predecessor. And so this year for Gwinnett County was $215 federal and $50,000 additional state, where Colchester's able to apply state dollars, where other folks are asked not to apply state funds, but to use local dollars and area on aging dollars and partner dollars for that match. So as a result, working with Colchester and GMT, it looks as though they do have a way forward to sustain their current level of constraints. And that's where we're working toward.
Without sacrificing services?
Without sacrificing services based on the latest projections that we're seeing, $1,500 or something. And I'll let Aaron speak to those impacts on Colchester, but I think we have a way forward with a few options for all the areas to consider.
Hate to bump you along.
Yeah.
We are not going to get to Caleb and Clayton. If our schedule's really tight, but I want to put you in the chair for 5 or 10 minutes. And then if we don't get finished later in the week, Aaron, we can put you on Zoom. But if you can, because I want to be, I recognize that you had to drive down here.
Chair Westman and Transportation Committee, thank you very much for your time. Nice to hear from the statewide folks, and we can hear a little bit about what's going on in Colchester.
So if you can do a 5-minute talk to us,
Sure.
if we can't get through in 5 minutes, it doesn't look like we could get through your slides.
Right.
So what we'll do is we'll have you on later in the week and we can put you on Zoom so you can sit here and but we totally appreciate you coming down here. And so from a high level, talk to us about it. And then because we've got a national company that is doing something in Virginia that it is supposed to be on at 11.
Sure.
Sorry.
Okay. I'll try to do it in 3 minutes and leave a couple for questions.
Yeah, and then we'll come back and we'll go through your presentation we do later in the week.
Right. So shortly, this is a wonderful program that the State Agency of Transportation uses. It's Aaron Frank, Colchester Town Manager. Prior to town management, I was in the transportation business, worked in urban transit for 20 years in 3 different states. And I actually did help operate this program in other states. So I have a few perspectives on it. Just as Ross pointed out, it's a very dynamic program. We did know that last year was, I think, $160,000 over budget in Chittenden County. Ross was able to work with us and give some more money, but because you're over budget 1 year, doesn't mean you will be the next because of dialysis and cancer treatment and that kind of stuff. So we got halfway through the fiscal year and boom, we're spending double our appropriation. Very thankful to, again, VTran coming in and giving some more money. They solved about 1/3 of the problem. We're all left with a significant problem. Green Mountain Transit initially had mandatory cutbacks, and then they have since made them voluntary. There was also a lack of notice that Colchester advocated very strongly for, and a couple times Green Mountain Transit granted the increased notice. So now we're really at the point where we're talking about trip purposes. The select board chair told me that I could present to the select board a method of funding. The overage, I think, for the work trips is about $34,000 to $35,000, and we've identified 32.5 that we could cover that still at differences between the suggested but incentivized new rules is social personal, and Colchester has for quite some years offered 3 social personal trips per week. It's generous, but we've been able to do that, and feel like the minimum we can deal with is 1 a week, and we're willing to look for money to do that. But that's really where the challenge is now. So the current year challenge, V-Trans has helped substantially. And then, I just want to say this program is very valued in our community. And Colchester is more like the rest of Vermont than Chittenden County from a transportation perspective. Think of that lake. It's in the middle. It's just like a mountain. You can't get around it. It's very difficult from police, fire, rescue, parks and rec, all these things. And so we're the 3rd highest community, city, towns, all that together in population in the state. And I think we're 15th or so in land mass, but there's a lot to it. So we have transportation challenges. We don't fit the urban fixed route system. We receive some, we pay for it on the same basis of other members, but this program is very important to Colchester. Ross pointed out we have high ridership and high use, but it's what worked for us because we're not concentrated. And as some of you know, Winooski was once our urban center. They decided to remove themselves about 101 years ago. So we're left with a more spread out land mass. 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being accommodating. We're just a little overscheduled here. We heard a lot about this from the senator
All right.
And Megan will get a hold of you and we'll later in the week want to go through your presentation.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yes,
Yes, in the way.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
no, please, no. Don't, please. I don't have enough to continue without.
Prepare.
And this person is next, but this person is.
Okay. What's that? Machine. Okay. There's the left get through. Mark, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank
Great.
you.
Sure.
This, little background, we have been taking testimony from the states that are in the lead on the NBUF and high mileage users in the states that are moving away from gas tax. We've had testimony from Hawaii, Oregon, Utah, and last week we had testimony from Virginia. So that prompted us to get a hold of you, and if you could introduce yourself, tell us how you fit, and talk to us about what you're doing in your organization is doing in Virginia, that would be really helpful to us.
Sure. Happy to be here. First of all, thanks for the invitation. My name is Mark Deflin. I'm the Chief Sales Officer of Emovis. Emovis is the technology and operations division of our parent company. Our parent company is called Abertis, Abertis. Abertis is a Spanish company. They are concessionaire, meaning they own and operate toll roads around the world. They do that as a business. They make an investment in the infrastructure in exchange for right-of-way. And then for that investment, they get 50, 99-year, 30-year leases or whatever to charge tolls on the road or the facility. And then that pays back their investment. And in the interim, they have a nice cash flow stream that they usually pay to retirement funds and those sorts of things. It's a pretty low risk investment, and it pays a little better than a T-bill or a traditional bond. So it's a nice vehicle for investors. Our business is primarily toll road systems. If you think of Easy Pass in the Northeast, or SunPass in Florida, or Fast Track in California, we do systems like that. And when I say we do systems like that, we do all of the front end technology that you would see on the road, the cameras, the sensors, those things that classify and take pictures of license plates. We do all that on the side of the road. We also have the technology that reads the license plates. And then we also have the operations group. These are primarily humans, people answering phones, shipping transponders, sending out invoices, manually reviewing license plates, and that sort of thing. A logical extension of that tolling business is road user charging. There are some nuances, and it's more than nuance. There are some major differences between obviously the policies and that sort of thing. But some of the technologies and certainly some of the services are similar. We have deployed road user charging system, mileage-based user fees, depending on your verbiage there in Oregon, in Utah, in Oklahoma under a pilot, and also, as you know, in Virginia under a full-fledged operational system. Virginia is, I wouldn't say unique in the States because now we have Hawaii, but they are one of the few states that have actually gone to a formal charging system as a choice. It's still a choice for drivers in Virginia to sign up primarily their electric cars as an alternate way to pay the fees that they need to pay to use the road. The key to the system is mileage reporting. How do you get the mileage? There are several ways. One way is simple manual reporting, where the driver, the owner of the vehicle, on a monthly or even annual basis reports their miles, and you take the difference between the two dates and you charge a fee based on the number of miles. Sometimes that fee is a flat fee up to a certain number of miles, and then it increments based on a variable fee. It depends on your policy and how you want to implement the system. The other ways are an onboard device, sometimes called an OBD, onboard device. These plug into the vehicle and they can track mileage through the vehicle's information bus on board. And this is the same, and that information is already there. The OBD just plugs into that. These OBDs are common in the insurance industry, so they're not unique to road user charging. We just use them for that. They are a bit expensive, and they require the user to do something and to install it. So anytime you have to get the user to cooperate, that can be a challenge sometimes. The other way is through the vehicle telematics. These are the system that already exists in the car. Certainly the electric cars have these systems, and we can tap into those on a wireless basis with driver approval, and they sign the forms, and then we can access the mileage through that. that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer questions. I know one of your key questions is timing from get-go, like you say, all right, I want to do something, to when you can actually deploy it. We can talk about that. Obviously, that depends on the nature of the requirements and your own procurement guidelines. So I'll stop and see where you want to dive deeper, or if you have any questions.
We do have a couple of questions, and I personally interested in the timing question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Westman, and thank you, Mr. Deflin, for joining us today.
Sure.
My main question would be around the telematics piece that you got through there at the end. Do you think that there is a need, or like a push needed policy-wise, to get companies who manufacture vehicles to move forward with those types of systems, or do you see it kind of organically happening already in the marketplace?
I've seen some organic development, but that data should belong to the driver. A lot of OEMs and manufacturers feel like it belongs to them. So that's where the rub is. And then they want to charge you for it, which now, the user has to pay a fee to get the data and pay a fee to drive. That can be a little bit over the top for people to handle. So your point about, does some policy or something need to be done? Yeah, it does need to be done. I think there are people in Washington working on this. I don't know where that stands, though, or who the right people are that are supposed to be working on this. I will say road user charging in general is kind of on hold at a federal level. Our government has other priorities, apparently, than worrying about mileage fees, even though the problem is getting worse every day. The problem, I mean, the funding for our infrastructure based on fuel tax is the gap is getting wider all the time. I'm sure you know that.
Well, yes, you've hit exactly on the conversation of the day here, and appreciate your note that it would be a federal move. I think what I wish we could do on the state level is require any new vehicles manufactured after a certain date would have the ability to provide that information to us. But it sounds like I'll just have to find the right person. Maybe our congressional delegation can be helpful. So thank you.
Well, as an action, I can follow up myself if you want, and give you some people to talk to at least. Are you familiar with the MBUFA, the Mileage-Based User Fee Association?
No, I'm not. That's a good.
They're very tapped into DC. So I will at this call, I'll email you Barb Rhodes' information. And they do a really good job of staying on top of all things congressional in Washington.
Thank you. That would be very helpful.
Okay.
And perhaps you could send it maybe to the chairs of the entire committee, just at the point of.
You've got Megan, and Megan will be back in touch with for that. So
okay, sounds good.
So in designing systems, what are we looking? What are states looking at, and what's the timetable? Knowing that you've already have systems set up, so your company is in the forefront with probably as much experience as any in building these systems. What's a calendar look like?
Sure. In the case of Virginia, from notice to proceed in the fall to go live in the summer, that was about 9 months. But keep in mind, Virginia was a fully operational system, so there was more testing done. There was a campaign, not done by us, but by Virginia, a marketing campaign and informational campaign to educate, and then some time to get people enrolled and into the system. So that was about 9 months from notice to proceed. Prior to that, I guess there was about 6 months of RFP or draft RFP and a response and then a competition. So some of those can be shortened if you needed to. In the case of Oklahoma, we did a pilot project. So we were able to, I don't want to say shortcut, but accelerate some of the testing because it wasn't such a mission critical and they wanted to get it up and running. They had some federal funding that they had to comply with timing wise. So we got that up in 3 months. That system was up and running in 3 months. But that was only 500, actually about 380 participants, and it was only a 6-month demonstration. In the case of Virginia, obviously it's a fully operational system, and we're up to probably close to 40,000 participants now in Virginia that have signed up for, I think they call it mileage choice in Virginia.
Yeah.
I apologize again for being on my phone. It's freezing cold in Pittsburgh and the internet is down in our building. So I've found a place that I can get online.
Where are you from originally? Are you
I'm in
from?
Pittsburgh.
You are in Pittsburgh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the temperature there?
Yeah.
It was 11 this morning.
Yeah,
11 Fahrenheit.
you are colder than we are this morning, by about 10 degrees. So, I'll give you a pass.
Well, I've skied at Stowe many years ago, and that was the coldest I've ever been. So that was.
We took testimony from Hawaii about 2 weeks ago, and it was 11 o'clock in the morning here, and it was 5 o'clock in the morning for her, and there was a marked difference in the temperature.
I can imagine.
And she was.
So
I can imagine.
Do you any more questions from? This is helpful, and we do have other people to testify if you would like to continue to listen.
Sure, if you don't mind, I would. And please use us as a resource. We have our goal is to promote the industry. We feel like if this industry grows, we're going to grow with it. We've done a lot of good work in the industry. We have one gentleman, Scott Jacobs, who's a pure subject matter expert on all of these things. He could take you down, a couple hours of very interesting anecdotes about, what to do and what not to do and those sorts of things. So, like I said, we want to promote the industry. Ultimately, it's competition, but we want to share what we know. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Did you say that
Yeah.
Rashini is?
And Jenny Roberts is. There, right there.
How are you?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark, very much. I'm sure we're going to have more questions.
Anytime. Thank you.
Okay. So Rashini and Jenny.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you help us walk through the guide?
Absolutely.
In fact, we have a presentation, a slide deck. Is it okay? And we can introduce ourselves as we present the slide deck. Is that okay with you all?
We'd like you to introduce yourself, give us a little background, and then we'll go into the guide.
Okay, very good. Well, Jenny, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Thank you all for having Rashini and I today. My name is Jenny Roberts with CDM Smith. I am our National Road Usage Charge Discipline Lead. I have worked on ruck studies, pilots, and programs all over the country. I've been working and supporting the Eastern Transportation Coalition with their mileage-based user fee efforts over the last 8 years. I believe Trish Hendren has spoken with you all a few times. I've also been working with Utah on their RUC program and supporting their program management for the last 4 years as well. And most recently, I led Hawaii's road usage charge program implementation. And I heard you all talking about the weather there. Rashini and I luckily got to spend a week there last week and enjoy their wonderful weather before we came back to the cold.
We take testimony in the last 2 weeks from Hawaii, Oregon, Utah, and Virginia.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, and I saw a couple of those over the last few weeks. So glad to be added to the mix. Rashini?
Yes, so Roshini, I'm based in Bellevue, Washington. Nice weather here. I've worked, like Jenny, on a couple of RUC pilots and implementations across the US. And over the past 4 years, I've supported Vermont through its RUC feasibility work and up through its 2024 transportation funding study. And Jenny and I also worked on the development of the RUC guide that we'll present today. We'll be sharing some practical insights that help agencies like Vermont, especially given the stage you're in, navigate RUC planning and decision-making as you contemplate implementation.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, with that, do you want us to go ahead and walk through the guide?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so what we plan today is...
In fact, we're doing this because it was recommended to us by the other states.
Great.
Very well. And I believe Maureen Bock from Oregon oriented you towards our team. Okay. So the way we have organized this, Jenny will will work through the first part of the presentation. She'll provide an overview of the RUC guide. And in the second half, I'll focus on how states like Vermont preparing for a first RUC program can use the guide and draw on some insights from Hawaii, because we know you just heard from them. And then we'll leave a few minutes for questions. It's just, we know we just have 30 minutes, so it won't be very detailed, but we will try to hit on the points that are the most relevant for Vermont, knowing that we have worked with your team for about 4 years. So with that, Jenny, I will go ahead.
Do you want to share your slide? Yeah, your screen.
Share the slide deck. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay, I'll just move to the first slide. Go ahead, Jenny.
Okay. Well, as you all are well aware, states are looking at viable alternatives to our motor fuel tax as a primary source of transportation revenue, and road usage charging is one of those viable long-term options. But as more states were recognizing RUC as a potential replacement for the fuel tax, there were leaders that identified a need for a more comprehensive toolkit for states to use as they considered how to move forward with a road usage charge in their state. And so this RUC guide is really meant to help states evaluate the viable paths and identify practical strategies for implementing RUC across states and regions and provide a sustainable replacement for those declining fuel tax revenues. So the RUC guide was developed by the National Cooperative Highway Research Program, or NCHRP, and it was informed by a committee of RUC experts from across the country that represented multiple different disciplines from both the public and private sectors. So I think you all know Oregon. Maureen was the chair of that NCHRP panel. AASHTO was represented, ATRI, FHWA, several other DOTs and organizations as well. So really a broad panel that brought unique perspectives to the guide. CDM Smith was hired as the consultant to conduct the research and really develop the guide, which is a web-based resource. So like a website, it's meant to be interactive, searchable, and multimedia, and meant to be surfed, not read end-to-end like your traditional report. So the guide was developed based on our experience with studies, pilots, and programs from across the country, You can see, Rikshini, if you'll go back to the map there. You can see here there's states in various stages of road usage charging. Most in the US are in that research and planning stage. We have over a dozen states that have conducted some kind of road usage charge pilot. We also have 4 operational RUC programs. You all have heard, I think, from all of them now. And Vermont potentially on the path to become the 5th. So lots of great progress. And I would say, you know, the federal grant programs that supported a lot of these state efforts have been very valuable in the progress we've seen across the country. So you can see here, there's a lot of different paths for implementing a road usage charge. The spider web is meant to look overwhelming because there's no one-size-fits-all approach. And finding that right path in a given state really requires that extensive policy development, organizational capability building, and communication. So states really choose their legislative pathway based on their policy preferences. So we've seen some states that have gone directly to legislation with little to no study, like Utah and Virginia. States like Oregon had a legislatively directed pilot, which then led to their legislation for their small opt-in RUC program that has now been operational for over 10 years. And then Vermont has chosen the path, the purple path you see here, from that pre-legislative pathway 1 of that feasibility study that Rashini mentioned to a potential post-legislative pathway 4, which is that small mandatory RUC program. So during our research, we really identified the most RUC projects and programs progress through these 4 distinct stages that you see here. And the research and planning is really all those activities that you conduct prior to passing any kind of legislation. That setup is really where it begins after you pass legislation and start to create the RUC program before its launch. Ongoing operations, of course, is anything after the program launches, so your live operations. And transitioning and growing really runs parallel to the other stages and involves all the activities that relate to planning for the growth of your RUC program, like we're seeing many states like Oregon, Utah, Virginia, and Hawaii already looking to do. So this is also a very busy slide. The guide provides building blocks and resources for each of those 4 stages of development. Now there's 71 different building blocks across those 4 stages that really help inform the next steps and decisions. And you can see here, if you look under each stage, that we have these categorized or grouped by different topics. So under like setup, you can look at system design, or you heard Imovis talk about the vendor procurement stage in Virginia. So we have these different building blocks related to these categories or topics that can really help you navigate to what your state is most interested in. It's not envisioned that states will begin with building block 1 and move sequentially all the way to 71. And you don't need to complete every building block on your RUC journey. You can decide what you're most interested in and what you really need out of this resource. So it's important to note that this web resource is, again, meant to be a guide and not an in-depth or step-by-step manual. So when you click each of those building blocks I showed on the previous slide in the RUC guide, you'll see a high-level overview of about 1 to 2 pages for each building block that gives kind of a brief description of what it is, more details about that building block, its primary use. In this example, you can see here, it's to pass RUC enabling bill, and then best practices and valuable lessons learned from other states, which can be very beneficial to leverage. So as you all know, it takes many stakeholders to implement RUC, and the guide has a dedicated page for each of these key audiences you see here. So those lead RUC agencies are policymakers, communications professionals, and transportation professionals. So it's designed to get them each to the most relevant information and resources, But the primary audience that the guide is geared towards is those lead RUC agencies that are responsible for implementing the program. The other users can still find a lot of valuable resources. We have some great communications collateral there. And anything related to their specific roles in the RUC research or implementation effort. So I'm going to let Rashini kind of walk through the guide now from more of that like user perspective.
Thanks, Jenny. So Jenny just introduced the 4 types of users. In the rest of this walkthrough, what we've chosen to do is to go a little bit deeper, but with the lead agency perspective, because that's how you have the most complete view of the guide. We chose not to go to the policymakers perspective because it's higher level, and it's very useful because it helps policymakers position themselves as in their oversight role. But the lead agency perspective is the one that's gives you a more holistic view. So as part of this guide, users from the agencies are invited to begin with a self-assessment designed to help them identify where they are currently on the RUC readiness spectrum. So the assessment is structured in 3 parts. What you see on the screen is part 1. And this is about determining the agency's current stage. So is it research and planning, setup, ongoing operations, or growth? And there are 3 questions that the agencies go through. Is there existing legislation authorizing a RUC program? That's the first question. In this case, when we simulated the Vermont path, we said yes, because we know we're on the cusp of enabling legislation. The second question is, do you have an operational RUC program? And obviously it's no for Vermont. And are you looking to expand an existing RUC program? Again, it's no. So as you click on submit, you would have, Vermont would be directed towards the setup phase, where you'd see building blocks that relate to the setup phase. So there are 19, from 19 to 46 building blocks. So let me just go back. That you can navigate through to understand how step by step, what are the different steps that you would go through to set up the program. Then part 2 is about, it's about reviewing key considerations through a series of diagnosis questions, such as whether the agency has EV adoption goals, so that would be a yes for Vermont, has conducted a pilot, that would be no, and if the RUC lead agency has revenue collection powers. So with this, it gives you a list of factors to take into consideration as you contemplate implementation. Then after that, you have the final part of the assessment, which is about identifying likely challenges. And that would give you some strategies that you could consider to address them. So typically, cost of administration challenges, data security and privacy protection, or whether there's a perception of a rural or urban divide. So these are issues that we've seen come up in pilots and programs, and there's a list of strategies that helps you consider what you would want to implement. So from all these questions, part 1 to part 3, what you have is a comprehensive set of practical building blocks, communication resources, and proven strategies that can help you agencies like yours, like in Vermont, navigate common challenges. So as Jenny mentioned, it's really intended to be a flexible guide, not a manual. It's not a step-by-step how-to, but it does give guidance to agencies and to other stakeholders, helping them build institutional knowledge as they jump into the implementation process. So this is a view of what Vermont would see once they submit the self-assessment that would put you in the setup stage. So we mentioned building blocks 19 to 46. It looks overwhelming. It sounds technical when you read the list, because those activities focus primarily on the administrative and technical setup activities needed for a RUC program. They span from analyzing, authorizing legislation to developing system and organizational design, all the way for system launch. And the magnifying glass shows a few examples of building blocks that address system and operation needs specifically. So concept of operations, system design documents, or customer service requirements, standard operating procedures. These are the things that agencies would usually have to go through in detail to set up their operations in order to support RUC. So This sequence here looks pretty technical. Much of it does involve standing up systems and structures that support RUC. One key point we really want to emphasize is that these stages also involve a lot of internal and external communications, training, and change management, which are very critical to building understanding with members of the public, other stakeholders, policymakers, and for supporting the staff members that will be doing the actual job. So I'll move into more examples and use Hawaii as something that Vermont can relate to, because we know that Hawaii has implemented a model that has a lot of similarities with what Vermont is contemplating. So Hawaii, they were in the research and planning phase, so they had building blocks that focused them on strong stakeholder outreach, regular communications, robust pilot system design, because they conducted a statewide pilot, and then general research that informed the policy framework for its small-scale EV-focused program. So that allowed them to move from planning to policy enactment by leveraging all the research foundation. So similarly, Vermont, because it has conducted a RUC feasibility study and some other analysis in the past 4 years, as a comparison, we just put a few things that we know Vermont has done, right? There are a few research and planning building blocks from the RUC guide, several of which do not involve conducting a pilot, but Vermont has completed a handful of these, including economic forecasts, revenue modeling, evaluating the cost of implementation, and drafting legislation. So these are things that set Vermont up for the setup phase very nicely. So I'm going to go into what Hawaii has done and how it has leveraged its building blocks to set up the program. So they have leveraged building blocks to communicate the RUC choice design that we know Mindy covered 2 weeks ago when she presented to you all. So how to communicate the RUC choice design clearly to EV drivers, how to coordinate closely with DMVs that have to manage the program and implement all the process changes, and building blocks that help advance the full program design, not just the technical elements. And then finally, how to anticipate practical launch needs, including customer support and operations, so that they, all the team and stakeholders could see what the July 1st, 2025 launch would look like. So here, these are just a few examples that we wanted to highlight on the types of technical outputs that Hawaii got by following those building blocks. So these are core technical and administrative documents, such as administrative rules, concept of operations that we mentioned, and detailed business rules, all important to stand up the program. So these documents provide clarity on how the system should function. They outline roles and responsibilities and help ensure that the eventual implementation phase is grounded in well-defined requirements and, most importantly, consistent with the policy intent. And then here, we really wanted to highlight what's not that, emphasized in the way the building blocks are presented, but communications that have to happen alongside the technical setup work. So we repeat what we said earlier. Though the setup seems to be focused on technical components, implementing a RUC program is more than building the system. It's really about setting up the whole organization, making sure people inside and outside of the organization understand it, accept it, and know how to use it. So this guide really emphasizes the close coordination across agencies, external stakeholders, and how internal team members need clarity on their roles in order to support the program. So it really reinforces that RUC implementation is not just about building the system and doing the plumbing, but ensuring that all the stakeholders follow along. And on the screen here, these are just a few examples of the communication outputs that were produced. They were really customized to Hawaii. So the building blocks do give guidance on what are the best practices and elements that need to be communicated, but very importantly, they were all customized to the state's local needs and to local sensitivities. So I'll move to this slide, which looks overwhelming. This is really something that puts everything into perspective, just to show you what the RUC guide covers and how different states have chosen potentially different pathways. So on the slide, you can see just 3 states. We know there's Virginia also, but we wanted to detail the pioneer state, Oregon, how it ended up covering almost the full range of building blocks on its own, just because it crafted the path for the other states that implemented afterwards. Utah did take a different route. It leveraged a lot of what Oregon did. It participated in RUC America Research Coalition. So RUC America is a coalition of 17 states on the West Coast. And they have conducted some pool research that Utah also participated in. And so Utah learned a lot from the collective findings and leveraged these to get into their own setup. Hawaii combined both approaches. They were also part of the RUC America Research Coalition. And in addition to that, they conducted their statewide pilot with a lot of outreach activities. So each of those choices that those different states made set them on a slightly different pathway. There's a logical sequence to moving from research and planning to setup to ongoing operations, but it isn't a linear path as you might think. Sometimes states like Utah, they go a little bit more directly into setup, but do occasionally have to go back into research and planning in order to be able to improve their program. So despite these differences, what we have noted is that there are certainly some clear commonalities. All 3 states had roughly 2 years from legislation to launch during the setup phase, and all relied on multidisciplinary teams to move things forward. So that's very important. So I'll just end with a key takeaway for Vermont. There's no one-size-fits-all model. It's really a guide, not a manual. And certainly there are shared elements every state needs to work through, but a lot of customization also, because this is ultimately about implementing a new policy that external users, meaning drivers, have to embrace, and internal users have to embrace also in order to support it efficiently. And then the last thing, the guide is, it just kind of brings together some common steps, but it's certainly not meant to be prescriptive. So with that, I'll move to question time so that Jenny and I can field some questions you may have.
It's a lot of information really quickly.
And it seems like there'd be more useful to the agency than us at this point, but it's good to know it's all out there.
Well, it is, but I think also, and I'm going to say this because Michelle is here, it gives a guide whereby we can compare what this is to what we've done, and be able to answer the question, because we're going to get the public questions about why did you do it this way?
Yeah.
And so, and I think we need to be able to, in a high level, be able to communicate to people why we did stuff certainly.
Yeah.
And so I think this will be helpful in helping us think about that.
Yeah.
Because if we can't answer those questions, people are not going to have faith that we covered our bases.
Yeah. No, it's going to be useful.
I don't see a lot of hands. That doesn't mean we aren't going to have questions down the road. And what as the plan will be to use this guide to help us understand where we are, because we're just behind those 4 states. And the efforts here will be, where are our next steps and what are we doing? So this is not the last we're going to be in touch with you.
Well, and I think you all are doing exactly what the guide was intended to do. You've brought in all the right folks. You've brought in the states that have implemented and preceded you. And, you know, that's really how the guide came together as well, was just learning from all the states that have researched, piloted, implemented, to provide kind of that collective research into one place. But I think that's what you all have been doing over the last several weeks, and hearing from everyone and really gaining those lessons learned, and as you all try to move into the next phase for Vermont. So
I would also say that we're kind of at a crossroads in ourselves. We will do NBUF, and it's directed specifically at EVs and electric vehicles. But we, like the many of these other states, are looking at revenue shortfalls along with the cost of transportation projects that have exploded. So the question will be, how long will we be just with electric vehicles? Particularly, it's striking from Virginia's point, a point where they talk about the loss in revenue between 2007 and I think it was 33. How much of that is combustion engines? So the whole discussion, this will be helpful for us to be able to frame that conversation.
Yeah, you'll find the transition strategies particularly useful. It will give you a lot of perspective on what other states have contemplated in terms of moving their fleet progressively into RUC or MBUF, as you call it.
Go ahead.
So on your homepage, which was like your main slide that we have, is the guide really the building blocks? That's kind of what the guide is.
yeah, and maybe if you want, I can share my screen really quick, Rashini.
I didn't see your whole presentation.
Yeah, we only have, we don't have it yet. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have, like, it's a link to your homepage, which I assume
Yeah, and we can put, and I think the last slide in our deck brings you to the guide. So this is, can you all see my screen? I'm sorry.
yeah. Where do you go to get the guide from there?
That is the.
This is the guide. So when you get on
Yeah. So,
to the website, and I think we can provide the QR code is in our presentation, so you can click it there. We can put the link in the chat, maybe, Rashini.
That would be really helpful.
But I get to this page, but then,
Ready to move your journey
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, so
but that's not the guide. That's a video on how to use the guide.
Right.
well, that's the start of the guide. So yes, how to use it. Rashini walked you through the self-assessment. So that's one way you can navigate that, is to walk through those. You can also go up here and go to the RUC users. So we talked, if you're a policymaker, maybe this page is more relevant to you and provides different resources focused on policymakers. And of course, my internet's not working. And then, yeah, here we go. So then there's some different tools for that are policy focused. So you can guide through it by user type if you want. There's also the stages that Rashini walked you through. So the setups, if we were going to the setup stage that the self-assessment would bring you to, that's where you would then find each of those different building blocks that you can then go to for more information on these specific ones. So let's just say, let's analyze the bill language, and then you would get that one pager on that specific building block if that's where you want to focus. And so there's different ways you can navigate through the guide. Like I said, you can do user types, you can do it by the stage you're in and navigate to each building block. There's several videos throughout the guide that help you with the various elements. This is kind of that communications collateral. So you can go here to look at go-bys from states like Oregon, Utah, Washington. You know, what are they using for you know, some of their operations or transitioning and growing and things like that. So we can certainly put this link in the chat, and you all can navigate through this however you see fit. But yeah, there's a lot of information there, and you can use it whatever path suits you best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yep.
I'll put that in there. Oh, you put it in there. Sorry, Rashini. Yep.
Yeah, and please don't hesitate to follow up with us if you have any questions. We know this guide has been has been put up after many of the states actually completed their work, and we know the customization that goes into it. So if you need more help navigating it or additional information, just let us know. We have been supporting a lot of these states, including Vermont.
We definitely will be in touch. Part of what my hope individually is that we can use the guide to help us understand how we move through the system in Vermont and what the next steps are going forward, and what are the things that we look at. I'm sure we're going to get questions from the public as this all gets unrolled. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? And what were the other choices? And it will be helpful for us to be able to move through those questions in a thoughtful way.
Absolutely.
But we'll be in touch.
That sounds great.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you both.
Very good. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. At this point, Logan, you're off the boat. At least for right now. And I think that we are done for the day.
Okay,
Thank you.
see you tomorrow.
Oh, well.